Welcome back, everyone. This is Latricia Johnston, Hocking Valley Community Hospital, and welcome back my friend, Katy Kudlapur. She's going to be speaking with us today about sleep, something that probably most of us don't get enough of. So hopefully she'll have some pointers there that will be able to help us. This is one of our ongoing shows that we've been doing on our 55 Ways to Be a Better Me in 2021. So welcome back, Katy. And certainly interested in what you might have to share today with us.
Great. Thank you, Latricia. I'm glad to be here. Yes, sleep is one of the 6 important habits of health that I am talking about. So today we'll focus on that. And sleep is actually defined as a condition of body and mind, which typically reoccurs for several hours every night. In which the nervous system is relatively inactive, eyes are closed, postural muscles relaxed, and consciousness practically suspended. So that's the technical definition of sleep, but I'm sure we all have our own interpretation of what that means in our life. But the reality is that not just in America, but really throughout the world, people really are not getting adequate sleep. And really sleep is important to overall well-being and optimal health. The recommendation is actually a joint statement between the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and Sleep Research Society. And in 2015, which still holds today, the recommendation for the amount of sleep needed for adults is 7+ hours. This is to promote optimal health in adults. So they actually use that term. Now, this is 7 or more hours per night on a regular basis, because we all have those nights where something wakes us up, or maybe there's a sick child or a storm outside. But on a regular basis, we should aim for 7 hours. Ideally, that's for in the studies between ages 18 and 60, because there are occasions where more than 9 hours may be needed for maybe recovering from an illness, some young adults just in their lifestyle, and individuals recovering from sleep debt. And actually, it's uncertain if there's really any health consequences for sleeping 9 or more hours. But we certainly can see in various studies, you don't have to look far, for adverse health outcomes from not getting enough sleep on a regular basis. And so it's been shown actually, and we'll kind of talk about this first before we set up some positive plans. But one big thing that continues to come out, well, there's more than one, but how hard sleep deprivation is on our heart. Our heart is strengthened during sleeping, and sleep deprivation can be hard on our heart, can lead to a higher risk of stroke and hypertension, which is high blood pressure. We're at a higher risk for diabetes. And actually, this is interesting, but we are at a higher rate for weight gain and obesity with sleep deprivation. So for the sake of today, in light of the definition, I'm going to consider sleep deprivation less than 7 hours on a regular basis. So that is pretty eye-opening. Those are pretty big things in the long term from sleep deprivation. Now, daily, how can lack of sleep affect us? Well, it can affect our immune system. It can affect our performance, and that could be in various areas at work or at home. Our energy level, a lack of sleep can increase errors and risk of accidents. So I think it's fair to say that getting sleep is important. Some people kind of pride themselves on saying, I don't need as much sleep as others, but it is something we can train our bodies to adapt to, and we may be surprised at a more positive outcome in our life with our energy levels and our productivity with striving for 7+ hours of sleep. Now, just kind of a word on weight gain and obesity. When we sleep, another positive thing that happens is that it restores our body, it restores our organ function, and it resets our hormones. We have two main hormones associated with our appetite that don't get reset properly with our sleep messed up. One of those is ghrelin, which is a hormone that increases appetite. So that hormone, if that's not kind of reset, we may find ourselves in sleep deprivation states, being more hungry, and sometimes for no reason at all. And often, if we're feeling more hungry, we're going to eat more and perhaps don't always make the best choices. The second hormone is leptin, and that is the hormone that tells your brain you're full. So if that's not reset properly, we may kind of lose that radar of saying, I really don't need that, or making a good judgment of maybe a sip of water would do rather than a bowl of ice cream. So I find that very interesting. And in working with clients, when our sleep is not adequate, what that really can lead to in day-to-day life. So I want to say a word about sleep apnea, because when we think about, well, what messes up our sleep, again, there's very varying things, but sleep apnea is actually a condition that they believe affects 2 to 9% of adults in America. And there's really two kinds. There's obstructive sleep apnea, which actually is a sleep disorder characterized by snoring and airway obstruction that results in 10 seconds or longer periods of not breathing during your sleep. So it interrupts your sleep cycles and it can spur further problems. And it's usually affected by increased weight. Fatty tissue in the neck can contribute to that. Whereas the other kind of sleep apnea is called central sleep apnea. And this is not weight related as much as it is an issue with your brain causing some obstruction during your sleep. So each of those have different solutions per se, and I would encourage you to see a sleep medicine doctor if you, or maybe your partner, is recognizing some symptoms, possibly of snoring or ceasing breathing during the night, or if you're finding yourself waking for no reason. Yes, and I know there at Hocking Valley Community Hospital, there is a sleep department. So that is worth mentioning, though, because although I said 2 to 9%, there's actually many more people that probably are not diagnosed with sleep apnea, that it's a real issue.
Katy,
it can be improved.
I was going to say myself, I'm really surprised at that low number, because I just know so many people on those sleep apnea machines. 2 to 9% seems just so much lower.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
And I did look up several studies. So I think if you narrow down to certain populations, keep in mind that's a general rate. They do in some studies feel like men experience sleep apnea more than women. So if you look at certain populations, you might find higher numbers. But yeah, you're right. But if you're just typically feeling like you aren't getting enough sleep, maybe based on your energy level or your productivity or your eating habits, you can, use a sleep log or do your own sleep assessment, whether that's just on with pen and paper, or there's apps for your phone that you can use, just temporarily. I know that I had an app at one time. Our sons were very interested in this and did their own studies. And it took up a lot of space on my phone. So I only used it for about a week and just tracked sleep for about a week. But they're very informative. They can kind of let you know, those apps, about when you fall asleep and how your sleep cycles are. So it gives you a really good idea. I don't have a particular app to suggest, but if you search in the App Store, And then delete it from your phone if you don't want it taking up a lot of memory on your phone. But I think it's good to do periodically just to check your sleep cycles. So speaking of, we do actually go through a sleep cycle. So we typically experience 4 to 6 90-minute cycles of sleep. And without getting too science-based, I think it's important to know that when we start to fall asleep, it's very light. And then our brain waves slow down and lull us through 4 stages before we get to what's called REM sleep. And that's the deepest sleep. It's characterized by rapid eye movements that we're not aware of, thus the name REM. But our body, with our arms and legs are otherwise motionless. This is where the dreaming takes place. And really our brain waves are active, similar to like when we're thinking, when we're dreaming. And then that cycle starts over and we might lighten a bit and then go back through the 4 stages and back into REM. So ideal time for sleeping is between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And I know that poses problems with night shift people and even afternoon shift people. But one thing you can do is identify, are you a lark or an owl? A lark being, a morning person, or an owl being a night person. I find this rather fascinating. My husband is definitely a lark. He is up before the sunrise. I battle being an owl. And what I found that's quite interesting is that when we start to get sleepy and the lights go down, our body secretes a hormone called melatonin. And with larks have that melatonin that actually declines rapidly after it peaks. So we start to feel sleepy earlier, the larks do, and melatonin's secreted, and then it starts to release. So that melatonin is pretty much the body helps larks rise early and often with energy. Whereas with night owls, it declines more slowly and typically can cause maybe a little bit more of a sluggish feeling when waking up in the morning. Not that owls can't wake up in the morning, because I do, and I've kind of trained myself to do that. But it takes me a few minutes to get a hop in my step, but I'm getting there. I find that very interesting that hormonally, our bodies are wired a little bit differently. So therefore, whether you're a lark or an owl, you may want to set your bedtime a little bit differently. If you are much more productive in the morning, kind of set some of those important things. If you can get your exercise in, if you can maybe even work on, I know larks that are students that like to work on their homework first thing in the morning. Whereas owls might find their higher productivity time in the evening. But still setting a routine kind of based on your rhythm or your chronotype, so to speak. So again, with the routine, let's just look at maybe a positive routine to getting yourself ready for bed. I told you that the ideal time, and this is according to some studies, is approximately between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. You may want to adjust that according to your schedule, but having a bedtime and then working towards that. So that may be incorporating a twilight hour. So a twilight hour is kind of preparing your bedroom, turning the temperature down. They tend to, and I've seen this in several studies, recommend around 68 degrees. I know people that have a lot of different thoughts on this. Some prefer air conditioning, some prefer their windows open, some prefer fans, some don't want that at all. But what works for you? What works for you? But light, being fairly cool is important, and decreasing light, even to the point that if you need to put dark out curtains in your room, some believe that light is even absorbed through the skin. So beyond just with your eyes closed, the darker the room, usually the better. A little night light really should be lower than where your visual eye is. So if a night light is plugged in somewhere, it should be lower so that's not really glaring on you. Maybe a soft scent in your room that's pleasing. Lavender is a popular scent. Make your bed attractive and soft, and think about your mattress too. It might be worth investing in replacing your mattress. So setting up your bedroom as far as your routine, setting a twilight hour so that hour before you go to bed, you start to turn off electronics, maybe, wash your face or take a bath, and kind of just take that time to kind of quiet your mind. Think about gratitude, things that you are grateful for, and get yourself into a relaxed state before the lights go out and you hit the pillow. Also, with planning your time to get up in the morning, when you're first setting a bedtime routine and trying to improve your sleep, you may struggle a little, but still try to get up at that time, because if you experience 1 or 2 tired days, you're eventually going to feel better about going to sleep at that hour. And if this sounds terribly structured, it's meant to, because again, we have a lot of issues in our country and around the world with not getting enough sleep, and affecting our work performance, how much we get done at home, affecting our relationships, our mood swings. Not to mention the chronic health problems that can take place. So it's worth working towards. It's worth trying, even in an experiment. So what about the days that you may not get all your sleep, or you're feeling like you still want a little more? The theory on naps now is that naps can be very helpful if you can incorporate that in to a busy day. The thought on naps, let's talk first about a power nap, and that's kind of considered between 6 and 20 minutes. So this is not a deep sleep. This is either laying down or laying back in your chair or putting your head down on your desk just to relax your body, maybe taking some deep breaths and just relaxing your mind for about 6 to 20 minutes. So power naps can be very helpful through the day to kind of recharge you, because actually our energy level kind of cycles in about 90-minute cycles too. I found that very interesting. The other nap is really a REM nap. And this really shouldn't take place within 3 hours of your typical bedtime. But a REM nap would be 90 minutes plus, going into a deep enough sleep that it's restorative, deeply restorative, just like nighttime. So if someone maybe was up later for a different reason, incorporating a longer nap in the day may be very helpful. So it's a way to energize us to get the most out of our day. So sleep is important for many reasons. I hope we've been able to recognize that today, and with the idea of starting a new day with energy and concentration, and really being able to get the most out of a day for ourselves and our responsibilities. So I hope that was helpful, and interested in anything you want to add.
Well, thank you again for your information. I'm glad you pointed out the part about the naps. I think sometimes it's maybe identified as an older person or a senior person that takes his naps. I know my dad does. For me, it's very hard. I think my mind just tells me there's too much to do. You've always got this to-do list. And if you stop during the day to do that, that's, you can't do that. I don't know if you are a nap person. Are you able to disconnect?
Typically I don't, once I get going. I am fortunate that with intentionality, I get good sleep at night. But I typically don't rest. I think, and I hear this from people, that often if they are eating big meals or maybe meals with higher fat, that can cause them to feel sluggish, and they just crave the couch when they get through the door. So that kind of napping we might want to take a look at, because there may be some things with our diet that we could improve so that we don't just crave that crashing in the middle of the afternoon or evening. But intentional naps, just to lay down and rest and recharge for a few minutes, can be very helpful. But it's worth thinking through your own lifestyle and sleep patterns to see if you can, not just you, but anyone listening might be able to improve by tweaking some other areas of their life.